Welcome to the Especially for Athletes podcast, where we explore essential principles that empower athletes to learn life's most valuable lessons through sports.
Hey, what's up, athletes, parents, and coaches? Today's podcast is going to be a little bit unique. We're actually going to do a breakdown of a post-game breakdown. So some of you on Saturday evening maybe saw the game between Houston and Duke. It was an incredible comeback. Duke was down 6 with around 30 seconds left and somehow ended up pulling off that improbable victory. Now, listening to the post-game interview with Houston coach Kelvin Sampson, all of a sudden we started to hear E4A principle after E4A principle. And so we thought we'd do a post-game breakdown of a post-game interview and see what Coach Kelvin Sampson can teach us about some of the especially for athletes principles. So here's the first thing that he said. He was asked how he felt about the overall victory, and Coach Sampson said the following about resilience. So listen to this.
Well, thanks a lot, Coach. You came over and you said, heck of a game, 11-1 run to end this. How would you describe the resiliency of your team down the stretch there?
You know, no one ever loses at anything as long as you don't quit. Now, when you quit, then I don't care, you've lost.
Isn't that awesome? Simple, but you'll notice that these great programs are built upon principles. That's what we try to do when we go around and teach young people and coaches about these principles of especially for athletes. You'll often see, even if people use different words, you'll see that these 4 core principles that we teach, they really are building blocks to a successful person, a successful program, and you'll see them pop up everywhere. But I love what he says here. No one ever loses at anything as long as you don't quit. When you quit, I don't care, you've lost. So that right there is resilience in one sentence. That's what we tell young athletes all the time. The only way that you truly lose is if you give up, if you quit. He went on to say the following.
Our thing in our timeouts, we've been here before. It's not like we were down 20. It's not like we were playing great. We felt like if we could get it close enough to put some game pressure on them, then something good could happen.
So that's what resilient teams and people do. When they face difficulty, they don't panic. They don't make excuses. They don't start pointing fingers and blaming people. They come together. They relax, they lean into the moment, and they just say, okay, what's our next step? In this case, he said they felt that if they could get close enough to put some game pressure on them, then something good can happen. They started to think about what was within their control. That's what resilient people do. They focus on their response rather than the events that have happened in the past. They don't come back to the sideline, start throwing things around, blaming people, yelling at people. They come together and they say, okay, here's where we're at. Now, how do we get to where we want to go? That's what resilient people do. That's what the Houston Cougars did. They said, okay, let's just get close enough to put some game pressure on them, and then something good could happen. Dawn Staley, coach of South Carolina, was also in the Final Four. She said this, a lot of times people want to skip through the struggle, but the struggle is where the growth happens. So both Samson and Staley remind us that it's the fight, not the comfort, that reveals greatness. One of our favorite E4A messages applies here. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. And it's not a motivational quote. It's a principle. It's a way that champions live. It's a way that successful people live. To realize that tough times, even in a game, It's not going to last. A team's going to go on a run. They're going to just hit shot after shot after shot. It feels like there's nothing you could do. Most teams, not all, and sometimes you just have to tip your cap and accept the fact that they beat you. But most teams, those tough times, they won't last. But tough people, they don't shrivel. They don't disappear. Tough people last. And so our first principle of be resilient is what Coach Sampson led off with. Now, the second one was in regard to our principle of win the hour. And so let's talk a little bit about preparation. Coach Sampson was asked how lucky he was to have experienced players who could deliver under pressure. His answer was awesome. Here's his answer.
What they did down the stretch, how lucky is it to have these guys on your team in these moments?
Well, it's lucky to have them, but it's not lucky that they do what they do, because that's work. They trust their work. They trust their teammates.
Isn't that cool? He said, I'm lucky to have them, the players, but it's not lucky that they do what they do. That's work. They trust their work and they trust their teammates. You can't microwave success. These young men who played for Coach Sampson had put in thousands of hours behind the scenes so that in the heat of March Madness, they could rise to the moment. That's what we mean when we say win the hour. Make the most of every moment, every lift, every drill, every minute of practice. Coach Kevin Young of Brigham Young University became famous this year for saying, we just got to stack days, stack days, stack days. We would just say, true, stacking days happens because you've stacked hours. And so you do all these hours in the dark, right? That no one sees. No cameras were there, but the Houston Cougars were making all these deposits. They were stacking all these hours and all of these days. And then when the bright lights of March Madness in the Final Four was shining on them, what Coach Sampson was saying was, what just happened was not luck, it was work. Well, what work is he talking about? It's all the hours, even the summer hours, the fall hours, then all those hours throughout the season that they had put in to prepare for that very moment. They were prepared because they had won the hour in so many situations. So you could almost feel Coach Sampson recoiling at that word luck. He was like, yeah, I'm lucky to have them. But what just happened was not luck, it was work. Serena Williams once kind of reacted the same way to the word luck. She said, luck has nothing to do with it because I have spent many, many hours, countless hours on the court working for my one moment in time. So that's a universal truth. Whether you're a tennis player, a basketball coach, or a high school athlete trying to earn a scholarship or a spot on the team or whatever, you have to put in the work and then trust the work. There's no shortcuts. There's no microwaving success. You have to stack hour after hour after hour and win hour after hour after hour. Legendary coach Pat Summitt once said, discipline helps you finish a job, and finishing is what separates excellent work from average work. So discipline is what brings about the development necessary for success. And I think that's what Coach Sampson was saying there is, no, this was not luck. It was work. So Coach Sampson didn't win that game in one shining moment. It was won hour by hour. In every moment, his team competed and outworked other people. And if you've watched them, they are hardworking. I mean, this is an incredible, scrappy team, which leads to the next principle that he seemed to emphasize, or at least he was an example of in this 1-minute post-game interview. And so this part is on competing without contempt. And he said the following.
You know, I hear what people say, you know, Duke this, Duke that. Duke's great. John Shire is awesome. But don't sleep on Houston. Don't sleep on Houston. We weren't 34-4 playing in the Toy Poodle League. We were 19-1 in the Big 12. Playing in the Big 12 helped us. Shout out to my Big 12 brethren, Coach Brett Yormark, and all the great coaches in the Big 12.
Do you see the principle here? You could tell he's a competitor of the highest order, right? Kelvin Sampson is a competitor. You watch him on the sideline, and it's incredible. Notice, though, he wasn't trash-talking Duke. He gave them credit. He said they're a great team. He gave their coach credit. But then he stood up for his own team. He said, look, we weren't playing in the Toy Poodle League. We were playing in the Big 12. And then he went on to give credit to the Big 12 Conference, who maybe it seems like from this, he feels like maybe was a little underappreciated nationally. And I think that the NCAA tournament has revealed that they were, right? They have the best winning percentage, and a lot of attention was given to other conferences. But Coach Sampson here talks about those 15 other teams in the Big 12 who he feels like prepared his team to be ready for this moment. That is awesome. If you watch Houston play, they are scrappy. They are competitive. They are fierce. They are tough. They compete like crazy. But Coach Sampson has the ability to take a step back and appreciate those who he plays against. Those other teams in his conference who prepared him for this moment, and also Duke, who they had just defeated. And so it perfectly balances what we try to talk about when we talk about competing without contempt. You have to be a fierce competitor. If you are not a fierce competitor, then what are you doing? You have to want to win. You have to fight. You never give up. You scrap and you do everything you can within the rules to win. But at the same time, you can appreciate how great your opponent is. You can appreciate, even as Coach Sampson said here, those other teams that you play most often that make you better. And so just hearing Coach Sampson in a 1-minute interview cover 3 of the E4A principles let us know, like, hey, we're on the right track now. These great teams that we get to see in March Madness, they emphasize the very things that we're trying to get into the hearts and minds of youth. Now, we call those first 3 principles that we covered today the preparatory principles. If you win the hour, if you are resilient, and if you compete without contempt, then what happens is it leads to success. And that spotlight that we talk about shines brighter and brighter on you. And if you live those first 3 principles and that spotlight grows brighter and brighter, then when you live the 4th principle, we call it the power principle, seek to bless and not to impress other people, it makes everything that you do even more powerful. When that spotlight is bright, then the actions, the kindness, the lifting, the help that you give to other people becomes even more powerful. And so it was awesome to hear him mention those 3 preparatory principles. And so just by way of review, here's what we take away from Coach Sampson's moment there as they just defeated Duke. Resilience means you don't quit no matter how hard it gets. The only way you could be a loser is to be a quitter. Second, win the hour means trusting the preparation that you have put in, that work you've put in every day, that effort in the dark when you were stacking hours when no one was watching. That's what it means to win the hour. And third, compete without contempt means respecting your opponents, even as you try to defeat them, and appreciating your opponents like he did here with the rest of the Big 12. If you live by these principles, success will not be a surprise. It's not luck. It's a byproduct by living a principled life, by living it the right way. So to all you young athletes listening, coaches and parents, when you wonder if what you're doing matters, remember it does. When you feel alone trying to live this principle, remember that every great team out there, it seems like everyone who has success, they do it the right way. And Coach Sampson and the Houston Cougars are a great example of those principles. And we hope you will exemplify those principles in your life, in your preparation, in the way you compete against other people. Does it mean you'll make it to the Final Four? Maybe. But you will be a better person regardless. So have a great week. Keep your eyes up and do the work.
Thank you for joining the Especially for Athletes podcast. To learn more about Especially for Athletes organization, get a copy of our book, The Sportlight, or to bring our program to your team, school, business, or organization, visit us at especiallyforathletes.org.